What's up guys, Craze here, and today we're going to jump right in with some brand new No Man's Sky Beyond tips and tricks. Most of these are stuff that have been added in the newest update, but a while ago I've made another beginner's guide covering the base game. So this one is basically a continuation of that guide posted a few weeks back, which is why I recommend also checking that one out first if you haven't done so already, as that is still relevant today. But with that being said and done, hit that like button if you enjoyed this and let's get started. One of the new additions in Beyond is the reworked multi-tool overheat mechanic that now greatly rewards mining with an almost full gauge. For example, your starting tool deals about 40 damage as a baseline, but that can increase to 100 when the heat meter is close to 100%. This means you're essentially doing more than twice the normal damage, and as such, you'll mine anything more than twice as fast. For the best results, you'll have to hover between 99 to 100% as the heat buildup lets a bit of a headroom even if you reach up the maximum. This means you have to do a constant dance between keeping up the beam for a few seconds and then letting it go momentarily so it doesn't completely overheat and put you on the cooldown. This new mechanic shines the most when mining multiple resources in quick succession, greatly reducing the overall time spent on them while also greatly increasing the number of materials you get. At number 2, you can make a lot of money early on thanks to a couple of new items that can drop from mining asteroids. In fact, bonus items can drop from mining anything, including rocks on planets, but for now I'll just cover the asteroids. So on top of the silver, the gold and the tritium that you usually get from these, there's also now a good chance for gold nuggets and tritium hyperclusters to also drop on top. You can go ahead and analyze them from your inventory for a few dozen or so of these base materials, but they appear to be much more valuable if they are in their original state. Both the nuggets and the hyperclusters sell for over 16,000 units per stack, and since you can get more than these in just a few minutes of farming, that is a very good money making method that requires minimum setup and effort, and it is very good early on in the game. Coming up next, while technically this is a tip as old as the game itself, it's something I haven't included in my previous guide. You can build barrel fabricators from the storage section of the build menu, and these are actually really inexpensive but also reward you some very useful crafting mats for free. It's best to set these up on your freighter since they tend to reset every time you summon it, and they can reward you anything from antimatter casings, navigation data, condensed carbon, and even actual antimatter. But this is best used for the navigation data that you get, so you don't have to rely on going on the space stations and getting them from there. It's pretty random, so this is by far the best way to getting navigation data. I would also argue that this is yet another great source of making money in the early to mid game, as the items that drop from these can cost quite a little bit. You will need, of course, the Atlas Pass V1 to open these, though this one can easily be grabbed from the manufacturing facilities as long as you farm them, or from one of Polo's early quests. At number 4, Beyond added a brand new build camera that makes base building and placing structures much easier and more convenient than ever before. You access the camera by pressing C on your keyboard once you open up the build menu, or the equivalent button on your controller, but you should be able to see it being indicated as soon as you open the build menu. Once you do that, you enter an almost unrestricted camera that you can adjust anything from direction to height, and it's pretty high range, so it's definitely going to be helpful to you. By far, this is best used when trying to build anything from above or when trying to place items in a somewhat straight line, assuming of course the items themselves don't snap to one another. It's quite similar to the build camera in Fallout 4 if you're familiar with that one. Just go ahead, give it a try, you're definitely going to love it. On number 5, you find buildings and points of interest on planets a little bit different compared to before, at the very least from my testing. So you no longer have to talk to NPCs on space stations to get directions, nor use the signal beacon because they don't present these options anymore. Instead, this is now all handled by the cartographer NPCs on the space station. You can find one on the right side in the first room right next to the portal terminus. And once you speak to him, you have the option to either pay 1 navigation data or 15 nanites in exchange for 1 planetary chart. Once you do that, you will get this new item in your inventory that you can use in order to reveal a random building or location in that very system, such as for example manufacturing facilities, supply depots. So that is why I brought up the barrel fabricator previously, because you can use that to get a ton of navigation data for this encounter and not waste your actual nanites. At number 6, many of you know of my industry guide from yesterday where I also covered the resource hotspots, but I want to make a small correction to that and give you a tip as well in the process. So contrary to what I said before, a planet can indeed hold more than one of these resource hotspots, and they are actually much more spread apart. That's why I couldn't detect them previously, and you have to kinda go a little bit further away from the first one, at least a few hundred units. So to find an additional hotspot after the first one, you have to first go at least 500 units away from the first one that you discovered, and then use your scanner, which will then detect the next one, and so on. So if it's gas, minerals, or electromagnetic sources, there's going to be a lot of them ranging anywhere from C class all the way up to S, with the S of course being the max rank, yielding the highest amount per hour. In the case of the minerals, it yields 1000 compared to only 250 for the C class. So again, sorry for the confusion. Moving on to number 7, this might be obvious, but tech upgrades are now movable. You can pick them up with E on your keyboard or the equivalent button prompt on your controller and move them anywhere you want. You can even swap them between the regular, the tech, or the cargo sections, and it's actually pretty easy. This will make your inventory setup much easier. You can test the proximity bonuses on the fly, and you won't have to dismantle anything unless you have a direct upgrade. At number 8, discovering all creatures on planets should now be easier than ever before thanks to the newly improved Discoveries tab. If you check out the fauna section in the Discoveries tab, you can now see that the undiscovered creatures now display a couple of information strings that will give you hints where you can find them. The first information indicates how common that creature is, which can range anywhere from uncommon, common, all the way up to rare, meaning that you might have to spend a little bit of time on the planet's surface until you find them. The second string indicates the location or the general location where you can find these creatures, so it can display something like underwater, cave, or even base, which I assume implies you can find that creature anywhere on the surface itself. Additionally, scanning for anything is now done proactively, meaning that you will need to hold down the scan button to start the entire process. It also seems that the tracking is a little bit better than before. In the case of creatures, I do recommend scanning everything new that you can find, because this is the only way in the game currently to learn the new bait recipes. So once you scanned a creature and it lists its bait, you can check the catalog to see exactly what the new recipe is and what materials it requires. I will drop a guide on creature taming, recipes, and bait very soon, so make sure you stick around. At number 9, Beyond added a very convenient new means of transportation for your base called the short-range teleporters. These have no loading screens, they're instantaneous and also very convenient. These are best used when your base is massive and want to travel instantly between 2 points, or when, for example, you have a floating base with a teleporter down below and another one at the top. To use these teleporters, you first need, of course, a source of energy powerful enough to hold both of them, as well as a wire connection between them. Now, of course, you can go ahead and use a direct line from the first teleporter to the second, but in my opinion, that looks quite bad, especially when they're out in the open like this. So what you can do, and what I recommend, is to instead hide the cables by wiring them up to a common link. In this case, my entire base is the link, as it's all a series of connected structures, so I simply connected each teleporter to the nearby power grids that themselves are already connected to the base itself. So I essentially got rid of the ugly wire, and since there's still a connection being made, I still am able to use the teleporters as they are still overall connected. And you can even set up multiple pairs of 2 if you want to travel between bases that are far apart, but do keep in mind that you still have to be in your base's range in order to do that. At number 10, I've got this question quite a lot, but many of you guys seem to have complained about having too many wires on your bases to worry about, or that connecting stuff is very complicated. It's actually surprisingly easy, and you only need one single line to connect to anything. For example, if you want to connect multiple devices to a single power source, all you need to do is to just connect these devices between each other with one single wire, such as how I'm doing right now in the footage, and then have the closest one connect to the power source, and that is pretty much it. All you need is one single line that that looks very clean, very professional, and in my opinion, aesthetically pleasing. The same can be done with multiple power sources and batteries. For example, you can connect multiple solar panels to one another with one single line, and then multiple batteries with one second single line, and finally only have one cable run from the first setup to the second one, and that is pretty much it. The same goes for circuits, extractors, and everything else that can be made very clean and professional. Finally, there's a couple more hints that I want to quickly go over. One of them is the fact that screenshot mode now fully displays portal coordinates on the bottom left side of the screen, so this is very convenient. It makes sharing coordinates very fast, and yeah, just go ahead, try it out, it's definitely very useful. Last but not least, you can quickly transfer items from one inventory to your current one without actually leaving that page. So for example, you can transfer items to your backpack from your ship, assuming it is in range, without ever leaving the backpack window. In this example, you can simply use the X button on your keyboard or the equivalent button prompt on your controller, and this is extremely convenient. A screen will pop up and it will let you pick up any item from all of your inventories, or you can even filter by inventory. It is definitely very convenient. It made things so much easier for me and so much faster that I don't think I can ever go back from this. But that's all for now. Of course, there's a lot more that can be added on top of this. Now tell me down below, what other cool tricks have you found out in the new update. In the meantime, don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Also subscribe for more and activate that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in a bit.